What's going on, guys? So today we have blue-red Delver, but I have a classic spin on it, which is Bomat Courier. I played this in the past and we're bringing it back. So the reasons why Bomat Courier is good again, Arcanist is gone, Wrenn 6 is also gone. Both of those cards have been banned, and now is the time for this little fella to shine. So Bomat Courier gives you a really cool element in the game where you can just spend all of your resources protecting Bomat and then get the payoff in getting those cards back by cracking him. So some cool tricks that you can do with Bomat in this format, which you can't do in other formats, is when you fetch, you actually see the entire deck, right? It's all nicely organized and you can see what's missing. Since you can see what's missing, you can figure out what are the cards that are underneath Bomat Courier. And this is super effective when you're trying to hide counter spells or trying to figure out if there's like a Force or a Daze or Bolt or whatever underneath your Bomat. You can also clear your Brainstorms and put like Force of Wills and Dazes to play around discard. It just pairs super well with the synergies in the deck. The other major new card is Ethereal Forager. It's been around for some time, but it was overshadowed by Arcanist. And let me tell you, this card is the perfect card in this deck because it has a Bomat type of synergy where it has card advantage, it has evasion. It's basically in between Bomat Courier and Delver. So I have absolutely been loving this card. It does have Delve, so I haven't opted for the full 4 because you can become flooded on that effect. But the other threats that we have are True-Name and Brazen Borrower. Brazen Borrower dealing with anything that you can't deal with in these colors, which is quite a lot of things like enchantments or like big threats like Gristlebrand and stuff like that. Brazen Borrower helps you deal with whatever you can't deal with while being a threat at the same time. And True-Name, when in doubt, just play True-Name and it's basically a bolt to turn. So moving on to the sideboard, we have Flusterstorms for the combo matchup, we have Pyroblast for other blue matchups, we have Surgical for graveyard hate, we have Abrade for Aether Vial, Batterskull, Winter Orb as our land hate, good against control, makes Daze live throughout through any point in the game, and Izzet Staticaster is the closer in the Elves and DNT matchup. Rough and Tumble as our Pyroclasm effect because it pairs well with our flyers like Ethereal Forager, Delver, and Brazen Borrower. And yeah, I mean, this deck is one of the best decks I've ever played. If you're looking to play in a Legacy, Open, Classic, or whatever tournament you may have coming up, this is the deck for you. So let's jump into some games and let's get to it. So here we have a pretty decent hand. We have Bomat, 2 Bomats, Ethereal Forager, Force, and a Daze with 2 lands. So we're on the play. This gives us a huge advantage. We get to play Bomat with Daze and Force backup, and we're going to be able to empty our hand pretty quickly with a hand like this. Basically interact with our opponent and make sure our Bomat keeps going. So let's see what our opponent plays. Opponent plays Verdant, fetches for Forest, and is going to play a Green Sun Zenith. So this is an easy Daze. We Daze here, probably going to untap, probably going to slam another Bomat, and then use the Bomat as our card advantage engine while we're forcing whatever their next play is. So we drew a Delver, so this makes our spot a little bit more difficult. But we now suspect we're playing against elves, so it might be a better move to slam Delver here. because flying is a great form of evasion against the elves deck. Yep, and we go with the Delver. Attack with the Bomat. Now we have 2 cards underneath. Bomat's already set up to draw at least 3 cards. And they play a Taiga, play a Reclaimer. Reclaimer is definitely a problem because it can go get Gaia's Cradle, as well as it's a good blocker against what we're playing. So we have access to our opponent's deck because of MTG Bot. We're actually streaming, so whenever you play against someone who has had a recorded event on MTG Goldfish, it will show that first. So here they play an Allosaurus Rider. They have a pretty good blocker for us. Let's see what we reveal for the Delver. And it does not flip, it's just a mountain. So this is more likely just play another Bomat and then swing with the squad. And if they want to trade, it will give us access to counter spells again, so that's nice. And there's no blocks, we're able to get in the full amount of damage, and now we have access to knowing what cards are underneath our Bomats by fetching. But we're gonna wait on that. No need to fetch. Elvish Visionary is not that important. Might as well cash in for a higher amount of cards. We definitely take the 1 here. And now we have a tough decision if we want to fetch now, or if we want to fetch later and try to play this mountain and extract more value out of our Bomat Couriers. And we decide we'd rather just take the Scry here. We get to flip the Delver. We draw the Bolt. Bolt is perfect. And we have a ton of good options now. And we're just going to attack with the team. See where they end up blocking. They block the big Bomat. We end up bolting there, fetching, and now this is our opportunity to figure out what is underneath our Bomat. So that's what we're counting here. We're looking through all of the cards to figure it out. We're looking through our exile pile to see what we've already played, because you need the entirety of your deck. All information needs to be revealed in order for you to figure out what's underneath your Bomat. Keep in mind we have 2 Bomats, so we don't know exactly what's under the one with 3 and what's underneath the one with 1. We would need to have fetched at different points in time, but what we do know is the entirety of the cards that are face down. Still struggling to figure it out. Want to double check because it's important and it's free information that can make a difference. And we're gonna take the Volcanic. I'm having trouble figuring it out. Alright, we figured it out. We're gonna crack the Bomat Courier, and we have double Force of Negation and a Delver. Pretty good spot to be in. We'll definitely just jam our Delver, and now we're not afraid to lose to any type of spell like Green Sun Zenith. So we see a glimpse here. We're definitely just gonna fire off our Force of Negation. And now we have another Bomat lined up to draw another 3 cards. Just going through our deck rapidly. I mean, first Bomat drew us 4, second Bomat's gonna at least draw us 3, so our spot is looking pretty good. We end up finding another Delver. And the move here is to swing with the entire team, because we don't mind trading the Delver and the Elvish Visionary because they do have a Gaia's Cradle, so it gives them a less of a chance of going off. And they block the Bomat, so we are more likely to... Okay, no, they changed their mind. They block the Delver, which is great for us. We'll take this and then go ahead and crack the Bomat, just in case we have another threat we want to play. And we end up finding 2 Brainstorms and a Chain Lightning. Go ahead and cast a Brainstorm. See if we already want to set up the second Delver. And we are able to find a Force of Will and 2 more bolts. So we've got this game locked up. So even if they're able to deal with our threats, we have double bolt with force backup. But the Clothis is going to put them at 8, so it definitely makes everything interesting here. We're just going to go ahead and force this. We don't want to give them mana off the Gaia's Cradle. And we take our next... Before we take our next turn, we're going to bolt, and then Delver is going to flip here. Delver flips. We draw. We attack. And even if they were able to remove a Delver, we could Brainstorm into that Chain Lightning. So move on to game 2. Let's see how we end up boarding. We do have Izzet Staticaster and Rough Tumble. So I feel like our spot is gonna be pretty good. We are also playing 2 Fork Bolts in the main, so we have a lot of really good tools in this matchup. It's just about drawing our 5 really solid cards in Izzet Staticaster, Rough Tumble, and Fork Bolt. All right, let's move on to game 2. We're out here just checking the sideboard, making sure we've sideboarded correctly against elves. We have access to their list because of MTG bot. And we decide Bomat Courier is the right card to board out because they do have a lot of creatures in the battlefield to block, and a lot of them are free, like Dryad Arbor and cards like that. So oftentimes boarding out Bomat is correct. A good indicator is if you want to bring in Rough to Tumble, it is generally a good idea to board out your Bomats. And we're also on the draw. Bomat is much better on the play as a great tempo play backed up by Daze. Alright, our opponent fetches. Cool. They play a 1-drop. We're not going to force that. We're probably just going to end up bolting. We draw a Daze. Solid draw. We're just going to go ahead and fetch, bolt, and we get to leave open Daze and Force of Will. So looking solid here. That's one of the cards that can get out of hand. They end up playing an Allosaurus Rider, which means all of our counters are pretty much dead. So we're really looking to find another removal spell, and we end up finding the perfect one in Fork Bolt. So we're just going to fire off this Fork Bolt now. And yep, we are looking solid here. They're still at 1 mana. Alright, they end up drawing their second mana. And now we have double Daze and Force Up, but is negated by the fact that they have another Allosaurus Rider. So we're in a pretty bad spot here. We're probably just going to start off with Ponder, which was a great draw, by the way. We just need to find a way to deal with the stuff on board. And so we find a Brazen Borrower, which now we can use to bounce the Allosaurus Rider in response to a spell that they're playing and counter that. So we're strongly considering Brazen Borrowing here and countering the Visionary, but we would have to use our Force of Will. So I think we're gonna end up passing on the Visionary. I'm pretty positive passing on the Visionary is correct. It doesn't really accomplish much here. They have a lot better draws that we would want to counter. Alright, Visionary resolves. They draw their card, and now we wait. They end up tapping their mana and bouncing the Visionary. I'm considering bouncing in response to this, but I think I end up passing. Here's another Visionary. It's the same one, they just bounce it back to their hand. And let's see what they end up playing here. They're playing another Symbiote. Symbiote is definitely one of the best cards, so we're gonna just go ahead and bounce that. Also, we can use the Daze to deal with this, because a Symbiote is an insect, so the other Symbiote can't tap using the Birchlore Ranger ability. So we're gonna end up dazing here. So this is pretty solid. Hopefully this buys us some time. And now we are in a decent spot where we end up drawing the Brainstorm, and we have a Forager on top. So we have some choices here. We either need to find a board wipe now, or we're kind of in trouble here. So I think we're trying to decide between the Brainstorm or just playing Delver here, but I think playing the Brainstorm this turn seems very correct. It's a tough decision, and we end up going with the Brainstorm. Alright, we go with the Brainstorm. We're able to find 2 lands, not the most exciting thing. And I think we're going to end up just playing the Forager here. Alright. Yep, we end up playing the Forager. We have Brainstorm on top, and then we have a Volcanic below that. And this will give us access to a lot of bolt effects while putting on a clock. And this is going to be really tough because our opponent can kind of go off this turn. We know they have the Allosaurus Rider, which is just going to resolve right off the bat. And then they get to play Visionary again if they want to, which will draw them a card and continue to dig them closer to something that could potentially kill us. They still haven't played a Gaia's Cradle, so that's some good news, but we're most likely going to die very soon. So this is Green Sun for 3. They end up getting a Clothis, which isn't that big of a deal, because now that we have our Forager online, we've created a way for us to start to pull ahead. So again, we're in a spot of some really tough decisions. So because we can get bolt effects with our Forager, but the Symbiote can bounce the Allosaurus Rider, which makes things so much more complicated. So I think we're going to bring back the Fork Bolt, and then the Fork Bolt should target the Symbiote and the Allosaurus Rider, which means if we are able to find another bolt effect using this Brainstorm, then we can deal with Allosaurus Rider for good and counter any big threat that they may be trying to play. Alright, we're successful in dealing with the Symbiote, but Allosaurus Rider is still around, so probably gonna start off with this Brainstorm. Hopefully we hit a bolt, and yes we do. We hit the bolt. Now this is just easy, put back a land and put back Delver. It could be Delver or Daze, but keeping Force is probably essential. Yep, we put the Delver back, and we just go ahead and play our land, and we can pass the turn. And so we've set ourselves up for a pretty good situation. Most likely we will see an Allosaurus Rider here. Perfect. Alright, Allosaurus Rider comes down. Kind of scary here. A Visionary. We let the Visionary resolve. It's not that big of a deal. It's a Symbiote. And now I think our wheels are turning a little bit. We're gonna bolt, and we're just gonna go ahead and force this Symbiote. And this puts us down to 0 cards, but our opponent is also on the back foot. And we still have access to another bolt. Oh. Okay, so we have some tough decisions. The Allosaurus Rider with 6 mana can make all the creatures into 5/5s, which would be presenting lethal, which is kind of scary here. But our Forager is not going to be able to get there by themselves. So we definitely have to clear the top of our library and hope to hit something better, because we have a mountain on top of our library, which is not going to flip our Delver. So we're just going to fall farther and farther behind. So we end up going with the Preordain. We end up going bottom, and hopefully we hit something nice here, and we hit our 1 of Staticaster. Beautiful, beautiful play here, and puts us in a decent position to win this game. So we can play Staticaster here and just deal with the Allosaurus Rider, which will put us in a position to start finishing off this game, because after when we deal with the Allosaurus Rider, then we can just ping the rest one at a time. And Izzet Staticaster hits the field. And goodbye, Allosaurus Rider. And we will pass the turn. Colossus activates. Gonna eat one of our bolts. We'll take 2, we're at 11. We're still slightly losing the race, so we're gonna have to figure it out here. And unfortunately we draw a land, but we do have access to quite a bit of stuff underneath the Forager still. A Ponder and a Bolt specifically. Yep, so we take the Bolt just in case things get a little dicey. We'll go ahead and play the Delver, and then we have a Brazen Borrower plus a Bolt. We get rid of their Birchlow Ranger, try to slow down their mana a tiny bit. Alright, the Colossus continues to hit us hard. We take the 1, we go to 8. And the Barbarian Ring is still staring us down. Most likely gonna kill either the Brazen Borrower or the Delver. Both not good for us because our clock needs to be fast enough to kill them. And they even drew the Pyroblast, which is brutal. Now the game starts to get very scary. So we're gonna go ahead and fire up this Brazen Borrower. They're probably going to end up using their Barbarian Ring at some point. What do we end up revealing? I think it was just a land, so we fetch it away, hopefully drawing something better. Found another Forager, perfect. We'll go ahead and attack for 4. And there's a Barbarian Ring. Now things start to get very dicey. Very dicey indeed. So we just play our Forager. It is possible that we should have played the Bolt beforehand. Just bolt the face and then eat it with the Forager. But yeah, I mean, that might have been a mistake because we do need to close out the game as fast as possible. And bolts are probably the best way of doing that. Just 3 damage immediately would definitely put us in a much better spot. They cast Once Upon a Time. That is totally cool. They hit a Gaia's Cradle. We're cool with that. Finally. Nope. It still does not flip. We'll go ahead and play the Wasteland. Nope. We don't play the Wasteland either. Alright, so we're going to pick up what? The Preordain. We attack. Get in for 4. They're down to 9. And this race is actually very, very close. So we're going to go ahead and Preordain. What are we looking for? There's a Force. Pretty useless. We'll just go ahead and play our Wasteland. And we'll get rid of just a red source. We go down to 3. They go back up to 11. We really need this Delver to flip. But there's nothing we can really do to make that happen. They play a Visionary. We say okay. They play another Visionary. Yep. And Izzet Staticaster is able to deal with both of them. We need the Delver to we really need the Delver to flip here. We're just looking for another Bolt. So putting a Bolt underneath our Forager would have been just really good. Still doesn't flip. We find another Delver. We're just gonna fire off this Wasteland. get in for a grand total of 4. They're going to go down to 7, but virtually at 9 because they're going to gain 2 next turn. But now we can see the finish line. So we're going to play our Delver. And then now we have a guaranteed flip. We can guarantee flip the Delver with the Brainstorm and the Lightning Bolt. They cast Once Upon a Time. We don't care. We're at the finish line. We just have to close it out. And we're gonna go for that Brainstorm, I think. We're gonna go for a Brainstorm in response to play around a potential Pyroblast. We are at 1, so there's no point in keeping the Force. So the only important thing is to make sure we have a spell on top, so Delver ends up flipping. Alright, we're gonna end up flipping our Delvers. Something to note, we should have kept the Wasteland so we could back the bolt up with a hard cast. Forcible. But we're able to take the game here. We made it unnecessarily close by not bolting before we played the Forager. But it works out anyways. And that's match. Well, thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure you subscribe because the next video is going to be a comprehensive sideboard guide on this deck. Stay tuned.